Ready? Call the meeting to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Karasinski.
Here.
Neely. Here. Parker. Higgerson.
Here.
Parch. Kettle.
Here. Don't believe there's any members of the public present, so we will skip public participation, and it appears we don't have any minutes. Is that correct?
Correct, the turnaround time.
All right, that's fine, just making sure that.
You'll have it at the next
Okay.
one.
All right, so essentially, my understanding is there's nothing new in terms of topics
Correct.
tonight, and so we're revisiting some things in light of responses from the city council, and you know, the council has differed to some extent from the Finance Advisory Commission. Interestingly, this time around, to a great extent, we were much more frugal than the council. Not in terms of taxes, but in terms of expenditures, we cut more. They need, according to Molly, I think 253,000 more in cuts because of the way that they chose to respond to the budget balancing measures that we went through. So I guess we can start with the property tax levy direction, and unless there's an objection, I'm going to go ahead and have acting city manager talking to introduce each topic so that we can be focused on what feedback is still needed.
So for the tax levy, the change was, and you guys had briefly started talking about it last meeting, was to capture only new growth in EAV. So that reduces the levy rate, and it reduced the dollar amount that needs to be levied. And that then, compared to forecast, adds $245,000 to the budget balancing gap. And that's essentially where council ended up after they did all their expenditure and revenue looks at the budget balancing measures, ended up with this difference that's left from the change in the property tax levy. So on that report, you can see where, let me grab find what page it is on here. It's on page 6 that shows
Of the levy document.
of the levy document, right, that shows the, how that township multiplier comes into effect for DeKalb Township, that if you kept the rate at the 122 rate, a homeowner of the 150 value home would go up to 156 on existing, so that would increase the amount paid. So council adopted just capturing new growth.
New construction.
Yes,
New
not on
construction.
existing.
Right, okay.
And so then that is shown,
So they're going to cut the rate.
right, so it goes down to, I estimate, from the 122 to 1.18. And so it'd be the homeowner on $150,000 home, once they get the 4% multiplier, would pay about the same dollar amount.
Flat.
But the rate goes down.
Can I ask, what is the total dollar of that levy?
6.5 million.
6,000,000,
511,257.
111, okay. And what was the levy last year?
It was
6,000,005. Close to it.
last year, we wrote it on here, was 6497653.
And the year before that, do you have?
I don't.
And so what is it under this amount?
The total extension with,
The
after we made the debt,
total levy then?
would be 6511257, so $6.5 million. It's not capturing.
I have never
pension.
heard of anything so irresponsible in my entire life. I mean, you talk about digging yourself into a hole. The city council is gutless. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. They don't have the guts to do what they need to do, and they're violating their fiduciary responsibility. I mean, the cost of the pensions themselves are going up way faster than this 1%, essentially. They aren't even adding 1%, are they? I mean, if 4.97 to 5.1.
It's not 1%, no.
That's, you know, how? I mean, it's just irresponsible. And there's no question that the growth in the EAV is growth in the value of homes. That's been showing up, and it's a small growth, and we have a long way to go. But, you know, and it's a 3-year rolling average. It's just really irresponsible to not increase by at least the amount that the EAV goes up in total.
It's 0.2% or $13,000.
That's because of.
No, it's not 13,000, is it really?
2/10.
Yeah, I just did it.
Well, it only went up 14,000.
Yeah,
14,000. Right, the two numbers you
13,604.
gave, you know, is up 14,000.
Really?
So it's 0.2% increase, which is what the new growth
Yeah.
is projected by the county.
If I can make a comment, I listened to the discussion the prior time, and I think we talked at length at our prior meeting about their understanding or misunderstanding of the concept of growth and new construction. And their discussion was to try to keep the tax flat. That was their discussion. But then they locked in on the rate rather than on the dollar amount. So they got left, they too got in this circular discussion. If you want, if it's their intent to have a flat tax or no tax increase on existing homes, then you lock in on the dollar amount, right?
Which is what they did.
And that's the conversation we had at our last meeting, trying to explain this circular argument. So if our houses went down 30%, as they did from 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009, houses went down 30%, 25 to 30% roughly, right?
Fair.
Okay, and
That order of magnitude.
in that time, I was on the council just right after that, I think '09, and we said we can't lower the tax burden by 30% because houses went down 30%, because the pensions didn't go down 30%. So we said we have to keep them the same, right? And that's what was done for about 4 years until Anne Marie and company had the conversation about, you know, this whole pension discussion, and they had raised it in the neighborhood of, if you go back 4 or 5 years, this number's probably up 20 to 25%. That's why I was asking you about the prior year. There has been significant increase in property tax levy in the last 4 years. So that being said, they haven't locked in on a flat dollar amount until this discussion. Okay, so
But it's
I think they're hearing it constantly politically about no more tax increases.
you know,
That conversation is going on.
I'm not sympathetic to that.
I understand.
Because you have to pay your bills. And I'm not asking, look, I'm a taxpayer too. I don't like my taxes to go up. But the bottom line is that I don't like my taxes to go up because the city's not, I don't like my taxes to be influenced by the city being irresponsible with respect to its finances, which you know, it's pay me now or pay me later, the old Mr. Goodwrench commercial, because what is being done here? If I was a bond rating agency, the day after you pass that levy, I would say, all right, we're cutting your bond rating because you have not shown that you even have the guts to levy what you did the previous year. And we're falling further and further and further and further behind with respect to the pension liability. Now, if they actually levy that amount, okay, and then add to that the things that we said you could count toward the pensions,
Which they will.
which, no, they're not going to do that, Tom. What they're going to do is they're going to take the 6.5 million and then subtract off all those things that we said could be subtracted.
Well, yeah, implicit in your comments, the only thing that concerns me a little bit is the fact is they are going to pay the pensions. They're going to pay them what
No,
they're
they're-
obligated to pay them. They paid them every year for the last 5 years, and they're going to continue to pay them.
They've
What they're
already-
doing,
yeah.
well, they're paying them according to the recommendation of the consultant. They did it last year, they're going to do it this year, that's part of the budget, they're going to pay them. All they're not doing is paying them 100% out of that pension. Now, I've made the point a couple times, and I'll make it again. If you go forward on this basis, and TIF 2 comes off, right, in 2 years or 1 year, when's TIF 2 done? Next year?
20?
So you'll
19?
feel it in, no, it ends this December, but we have one more year.
Okay, so 1 more year, you're going to double the amount, instead of the 50% surplus, we're going to get 100% of the surplus, so it's going to double, right? We're going to get all of the TIF money that's in TIF 2, and then you're going to end TIF 1, and you're going to create, I don't know the exact number, but somewhere in the neighborhood of $70 million of TIF increment that resides in TIF 1 is going to come back to the rolls. And that's going to be another $300,000 of tax that's going to come into the city that can be applied in our formula towards this issue. It's not insubstantial, in addition to the additions we've made in our pilot and our other conversations. So I see in 2 years that this conversation is going to be much more muted than it is now. That's just some comment about the direction that's going to happen.
I doubt it. I doubt it, because, and the reason why I doubt it, Tom, is that the money is being treated as fungible. And there's nothing to indicate. I understand your argument, and I factually, there's nothing wrong. But you've got behavior here that has been willing to accept essentially a 5-year strategic plan that bankrupts the fund balances. And there's nothing in this plan, you know, it's a general equilibrium system. There's nothing in this plan to recapture that.
I was going to say some really nice things tonight. I was. Because there's been huge progress, and we've talked about that.
That's true.
This 5-year plan and the disclosures in this forecast are the most honest reflection of a look forward that we have gotten. And I've told you that, okay? And you also said, which I thought was exactly what our intent was in creating a good 5-year projection, is that the recommendation of $1.68 million on a 5-year basis, on a go-forward basis, keeps us at 25% for every year for 5 years. If we just do it, that's all we need to do is hit that 1.7 million, and they're only 250 grand away. To me, that's great, great progress in balancing out the reality of DeKalb's current economic reality. And we have not faced it. In our prior management, we have not been willing to face it. And I think you're on the verge, this group and others working together, of creating an outline here of facing it, dealing with it, and not having to come back to this over and over and over. And then maybe we can talk about capital at some point.
I was just to
You
say that,
know, that's kind of my hope.
But don't you think the budget balancing measures are almost exclusively short-term?
Well, if you lock in on this 5 years, that staffing level has to stay there.
Yeah.
Whatever city manager walks in this door needs to be told, this is our economic reality, and God help you if you can make it go faster, wonderful. But if you can't, don't pre-spend what you think might happen in the future, because that's the path we were on.
But Tom, that's exactly what you're suggesting that we do.
No, I'm not. I'm
Yes,
saying,
now,
look at this.
now, wait a minute, hold on. You're counting on a TIF increment
What?
that does not exist
Why do you say that?
because you don't know what the EAVs are going to do. Okay, fair enough. I mean,
That's
well-
fair, but they're not going down anymore.
true, but
Not saying they couldn't.
we had some negative TIF
Yes.
increments.
Oh, I know we have.
And, you know, we're on the same team here. I mean, I'm not arguing that. I mean, it's a matter of, on the issue of the levy, conceptually, I could live with levying what they levied last year. I don't like it, but I could live with
Dollar amount
with
of
that.
rate.
The dollar amount.
Okay.
The rate is irrelevant because they don't set the rate. I mean, the only thing they send forward is a dollar amount, even when they're trying to concentrate on the rate. But this says, you know what? We're going to be slaves to an idiotic promise that we're not going to do any significant revenue enhancement. And I just can't buy that.
Well, right now, in your plan, you've got $400,000 to $500,000 in new revenue, in the assumptions that we've all done.
Not general revenue.
No, but in the ambulance fees and some of the other
Correct.
fees that we have attached,
Right.
that's 500, and it's all going into general fund. I know people don't like to hear that, but those are all going into general fund, and the pensions are paid out of the general fund.
Part of it?
Yeah, all of the pensions go through the general fund. They're paid out of general, we don't set up separate accounts for it. It
Okay.
runs right through the general fund. And we're very, very close to achieving, in my mind, a great objective, at least one that we've talked about. It is getting this thing set up so you've got 5 years of balanced opportunity, and if you can exceed that, wonderful.
so what I was gonna say is TIF 2 is in that 5-year plan. when
Yes.
It is. The
Right.
one that is not is TIF 1.
Right.
Because with the creation of TIF 3, how much goes away
Is
into
debate.
TIF 3, we're still working out, so there could be a little room in the end of this forecast.
Well, you're taking out some depressed properties plus the 2 projects.
Right.
So it shouldn't be 10% of the total.
No, but it won't actually come into effect on the 5-year plan.
I understand,
until last year.
I understand that's a discussion to be had with the rating agency. If you're there selling it, you'd be pointing these things out if you're selling this.
Oh, sure, no, there's no question about that. So, all right, so let's make sure that we're clear in understanding of that what I thought is accurate.
Right.
So, whatever the number is, 4.97, 5.1, whatever.
6511, she's got.
6.511257.
Okay.
This committee did not recommend that. This committee recommended a higher number.
Correct.
I mean, the earlier vote,
Okay, so what is the number? I thought we were talking about.
What did we recommend?
You recommended, actually, it would be an increase in the levy closer to,
6.9.
yeah, closer to 7 million. Hold on, let me get that.
Right.
So
I didn't
council did
support
not
it.
follow
Okay.
the recommendation
Right.
of the FAC on that.
Okay. We recommended the full 8%.
And that was, you would fully fund using the other sources as well. So-
Now, that's 6.9 minus the other sources, right?
No, it was like 7.2 minus the other sources. Got us-
Right,
Yeah,
which got us down to like 6.3, didn't it?
I'm gonna pull it up in 1 second.
There's a lot of numbers here.
My recollection.
Well, that's what, I want to understand what's the
My
number.
yeah, I agree. My understanding was that effectively, it was an 8% increase in the levy needed to get to 100% coverage.
8%.
And they're saying,
So council has chosen to ignore our,
yeah, I didn't support that, but that was
That-
the vote, the majority did, yes, correct.
Okay,
But they too have this problem of balancing this thing by at least $250,000.
Right, so we're left with about 250.
And we are too
245.
now on this basis.
You would be 500, because when we ended with the FAC recommendations, we had a gap of 250, which we filled through the FAC recommendation on the tax levy. So that goes back to, so you add that 250 plus then the 250 to do just new growth, right? So I think based
think
on
it was-
FAC's recommendations, you'd be $500,000.
I think it was 6.9 something.
Yeah.
So
all right, but was
400,000.
it, all right, did we actually extend 6.9? Or did we extend 6.9, saying, all right, here's the 6.9 that fully funds in quotes, the 6.9, but then we said, all right, of that 6.9, did we, that we took off the pilot?
I don't think so.
It ended up being an 8% increase.
I'm really confused then, because that's what I thought we recommended, was that we would get,
When we started
Yeah,
with,
me too, Mike. I feel like all of a sudden the goal line's changed. You know, we don't know where it is.
you started at the, you started closer to 7.3 because you included IRA.
okay, all right,
So that gave us, hold on. Yeah, we started at 7.8 million with IRA.
okay,
Then we reduced the water pilot.
okay, and then we got down to
3.1.
7.3,
Yeah, and
okay,
so it ended up being an 8% increase
Okay.
instead of the 20% increase.
all right, okay, and so what is the council advocating? What's the extension?
So the extension would be the 6,511.
So they're recommending roughly $800,000 less in extension.
Right, which I think,
8%.
Yikes.
but if you're going off of their current recommendations on the budget balancing measures, on that, remember, so you guys stopped when we got to the alternative
Right.
recommendation.
We stopped, we did zero.
Because you, exactly. So you didn't go through that alternative recommendations, council went through that. So once they did the recommendations plus the alternatives, and then changed the recommendation on the property tax levy, their ending is about a $245,000 gap remaining. So that's the gap we need to solve.
That's right. We stopped on item 31 instead of 50.
Right, and they went through the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then, we've never gotten to streets and fleet discussion.
Right.
So you still have this whole other,
Yeah, but we can come out, we
Take a look at it.
can quickly come out $600,000 ahead. Very quickly. That's what's so frustrating about this. We
Right.
could be $600,000 in the black.
correct?
All they have to do is adopt the levy that we recommended. They're $600,000 in the black.
Of the budget balancing items, which ones did they knock out?
So if you go
Was
to
it
that,
police and fire that they got stuck on?
right, police and fire, so they did the two management level were recommended,
So they took the two highest paid,
and then kept the two lowest, the firefighter and the police officer.
okay, and then they took out the additional
They
overtime
took
cost.
out the overhire.
So all of that,
They did
with
some
two
other,
heads plus the overtime, was not enough to get them home.
No, they did some other things, so like, you guys had not recommended the IT director. They also didn't do the IT director. It was that PDF I sent you, it's on
Yeah.
the agenda. So if you wanted to look, I put on each slide, it has council direction in your direction.
Right.
So you can see.
So, all right, I don't think this should be lost because I disagree with some of what the council did, but here are some of the things that they did. Eliminate the Metro West Metropolitan Managers Funded. Ignorant. What's that?
That's the older.
Yeah, I know, but I remember, I read the new one.
Yes, they
They
did.
eliminated that.
Mhm.
They eliminated the Chamber of Commerce support.
They, no, the chamber, they said they'll keep it 1 year, but they want to do a proposal process, like a request for proposals to see if you could do it in the following year. So that's just a more of a,
DCEDC.
that was reduced, was that the one that was, nope, they left DCEDC,
Yeah. Oh, I
and
thought
they
they
reduced the Convention Visitors Bureau by 10,000.
And they kept the band. There was a
They reduced the
reduction.
band by 10,000.
Yes, they reduced it by.
And they kept athletic sponsorship.
They did.
Yeah.
They did not, ultimately, they did not transition the airport.
Right, so we're going to do more research on that one. So that'll probably be another year.
They eliminated part of the non-bargaining unit salary increase, right?
What did they take it down to?
1 1/4,
From 2
2.5.
to, let's cut it down, okay.
Mhm.
I think that's what we did too. That was your recommendation?
We never went to it.
We never
It
went
was in the
down.
Oh, that was the
alternatives, we
alternate.
never got to it.
Okay, so that's where we could pick up our balance. Our differences are right there then.
Right, so they went further through the recommendations. You guys
Yep.
got to zero
Okay.
before you went through these.
I think I did this.
Yeah, you had provided your feedback in the survey initially, but then
Right.
at the meeting, we
Right,
didn't go any further.
correct. We voted on it. They picked up a self-storage facility use tax.
Yes. But they didn't increase the video tax.
They didn't
and
increase gas.
Right.
Sales tax.
They didn't increase anything except they went along with the self-storage tax.
No, hotel motel is a 0.5%.
Oh, excuse me, yes, yes.
They did.
I just wondered, it would be nice to have motels that paid the tax. They need to concentrate on getting, we've got some large events that come into the community, and we've got professional term, diddly squat in terms of good hotel. I mean,
Why?
They
They're-
did
they're
approve the
paying.
home to suites, so that's going.
yeah, but that's a small number of, there's been a need. There is not a single full-service hotel in any closer than Aurora or Rock. Well, yeah, no, that's true. That's not a full-service hotel. And, this
Is it Rochelle, you
community,
mean?
yeah, Rochelle does not have one anymore.
When you say full service, I mean the Hamptons.
What
I know beyond
Does
breakfast.
it have catering? Does it have a
Oh,
restaurant?
it doesn't have a meeting room?
No, and it doesn't have meat, it's not a full-service hotel. It's a nice place to stay, and it fills up very quickly for major events. But, we need to get the hotel capacity in the community filled, and then hopefully expand. I mean, Sycamore actually has, they may have more hotel rooms than we do, or it's pretty close.
That I don't know, but I do recall seeing stuff that their hotel motel usage, like room space and stuff, was going up about 20%. And by adding like home to suites, I think we could bring some of the hotel space back into town.
Yeah, well, that would be, that's
So that
good.
one helps. But yeah, you're right, that's one hotel
Yeah,
addition.
We're full service on this.
Full service.
yeah, there we go. Okay. But anyway, that's nice. I hope we get it. we really need to, I assume the university pays the hotel motel there?
When they have people stay at the hotel,
Yeah.
I believe that's one that they do pay.
They
because
should, I
even
mean,
local
there's-
governments.
Where's the, like, the
exempt.
football teams, visiting football teams stay?
They stay-
Football teams. Used to stay in Rochelle.
Utah stayed in Chicago.
Chicago,
Or
yeah.
something, and they hired state troopers to,
They never saw so many, those kids never seen so many lights.
yeah, no, and when we have the high school, they stay over. I've been in hotels in Naperville that are filled by events here. You know, it's just, we don't have the hotel rooms. I mean, it's not just a quality issue.
Well, so the home two suites will help, but it's not, they haven't even broke ground yet, so it'll be.
But what is it, 40 rooms?
I thought it was, I'm not sure. Eric, do you know off the top of your head?
Well, I will have
Four stories.
It's 4 stories,
Similar
yeah.
to
4 stories.
yeah.
Which I think was more like 119.
You
Could
can't build a hotel for much less than 100 rooms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or about your minimum.
But I do think it'll add new hotel stays for us.
Well, that's
Instead of just a
that's
transfer.
positive. Yeah, no, that's really good. So,
And then we're looking into the amusement entertainment tax. Because the big question there, and that we're trying to figure out is how the convocation center and NIU are together, because they're treated a little bit differently in how we even do contracts with them.
well,
Because if they're an NIU owned and they fall under the no tax with the state university, I think
It
the
has-
convocation center might be different.
it has to do with, anything that is not part of the educational purpose. Like, for example, if you have an area of your student center, okay, this is the way it normally works, that is regularly used for service of alcohol, that's taxed. Under the property tax.
Yeah, so, and I think it's like a percentage too as well if it's a mixed use, because I
Yeah,
know we went through this
right.
exercise in
I'm
Champaign,
sure you did.
and the assembly hall didn't qualify, they wouldn't have paid the tax because of the U of I relationship, or how much
Yeah.
they used it for U of I specific. So we're
That's
gonna
something
investigate
for your
this.
lawyers to
Yeah.
investigate. I won't,
But that one, it really depends on what the convocation center, otherwise it gets really limited to like the Egyptian theater,
Yeah.
stagecoach players, and the movie theater.
well, and also the Connell Theater.
Yeah. But it becomes a much smaller.
It does, but the attendance is not real heavy at, like the football stadium. But those other communities do collect from the universities on the entertainment taxes. But
So
you
we're
would-
gonna
you
do
would
more
have to
work on
work
this.
that out. Yeah. Okay. So what do we need to do? Anything? I mean, other than my Michigan.
What are we doing here?
So really
I just wanted to ask, on Monday night, because we know what the council thinks about our ideas, or appears to, and so that meeting that's coming up on, was it the 5th?
correct.
Right.
November 5th.
Yeah.
Are we
that a
trying to
Tuesday?
win hearts and, it's a Monday?
It's Monday.
Yeah, are we trying to win hearts and minds, or what are we doing there?
So, that is when council will have kind of their opportunity to try to solve the $245,000 gap they have remaining. There are a number of the aldermen and the mayor that support using fund balance if there isn't some alternative that would be acceptable to the group. So you could look at some of the recommendations they made. I put on here.
Back up a little. They're in favor of the fund balance going below 25?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
use up the fund
Yeah.
balance, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, are they saying they will replace it with a letter of credit
No.
or
No,
anything?
just, it's there.
It's a piggy bank.
It's a piggy bank, yeah.
I hope
In their
we're-
minds.
I hope we're definitely against that as a FAC recommendation.
So,
Well, I have to say I'm against it unless I wouldn't be totally opposed to having a line of credit with the bank to cover, rather than keeping cash on hand.
Well, no,
For a portion.
it isn't cash on hand. That balance is not cash on hand.
but, so what I was going to say is I'm pretty sure that this group would not be in favor of fund balance, but the ones that council had, most of their not in favor items were a lot on the maybe list, more so than a hard no.
Oh.
Most of them, not all of them. So there could be some of the ones that council was not in favor of that you can go back and look and say, we would recommend that they relook at this one, or you could give the recommendation more general and say that we recommend you don't use fund balance. And then at that November 5th meeting, you're there to help go through that remaining need and to further recommend if you want to say they need something for street and fleet funding or not, or just be there to provide more information at that 5th meeting.
I mean, forgive the cynical. I don't understand why they need us there when they're just going to do whatever the hell they want. Anyway, I mean, they've ignored recommendations. And we're just going to sit there and I'm going to tell them they're irresponsible. I'm going to tell them that they're not meeting their fiduciary duty, and they're going to say, screw you, we're the ones with the vote, and, and I'm going to waste 3 hours at a meeting where I'm going to pull my hair out, and it's not going to make any difference for the community, because they have their own bullheaded opinions about only balancing, seriously only balancing on the expenditure side. You can't do that.
I don't know how you're going to tackle this in the long run unless you really work on the income side.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't cut your way into prosperity.
And how would you
Eventually,
go?
you can't do it. You have to have increased income.
I mean, you need to be responsible. Yeah, I mean, you need to wholly be responsible. But just from a decision-making standpoint, the more constraints you place on a decision, the worse decision you're going to make. And, nickel and diming 40,000, 50,000 at a time is not going to solve a structural deficit of $1.5, $1.6 million. And I understand the issue of competitiveness, but it's not as big an issue as people would like it to believe, like that to be believed.
Well, the items that are maybe, I guess I pulled up the FAC document dated 10/23. That's the one I'm looking at. And I don't see these. Maybe I pulled up the wrong one, but I don't have the city council's notes that you.
It should be the attachment to the budget balancing measure.
That's what I have. I got that.
You went to the last.
10/23.
Yeah.
Is
Was
that
it?
it?
Yeah, and it should be after the report.
The one they
Oh,
sent
after.
out yesterday.
It's an attachment to the report. So the
Right.
report's the same report, but I've added the PowerPoint with the survey results.
I've got this PowerPoint.
So you're not,
The
you're not
city
seeing.
councils, what they decided in their notes
As
are
our vote,
on
their
there
vote
also.
in common.
It starts
Right,
like this one,
right.
where I have council
Right.
in green and yours right below on each slide.
I'm sorry.
It would be in your email too. I
Yeah,
emailed it to you.
it's-
I picked it up. I picked it up right off of the agenda.
Oh, well,
It's-
it should be there then.
That's where I picked it up from. I created a PDF off of the agenda packet for the budget balancing.
Oh, she
piece.
No.
sent a revised agenda.
Yeah, there was a
Did you wait for
revised,
revised?
yeah.
Okay, that explains it.
That came out yesterday, wasn't it?
The revised it, but I sent it
Yeah.
to you in a separate email first. so you
Yes.
guys
Yeah, I
could
thought
read
it was-
it. Did you want to look?
Yeah.
Tom, I know most of it, so if you want to look through, go ahead.
Well,
And there you
my
can
only
see what the
suggestion,
differences are.
yeah, my only suggestion is if they're 250,000 and they left the IT manager in,
Correct.
I think you could get there pretty quickly, because I'm not sure we left the IT manager in at the end.
We did?
You-
Yeah, we took it out, didn't we?
No, we left
No, we left in the
it in.
IT
We left it in.
manager.
But you guys were,
We,
I think
It was
you had a
a
split vote
narrow
on it.
3-2, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It was.
Yeah,
It was.
okay.
Or you could, if we start to talk about streets and fleet, is there, you know, Tom, you had said you'd be willing to look at revenues that way. Is there something similar to what you guys recommended last year, where you look at the revenues and a portion of it goes to general fund and a portion of it goes to streets and fleet? I mean, that could be another avenue, but, you know, you can do
Yeah,
streets and fleet
I'm
funding.
so reluctant
I
to
know.
jump on that train, and I'll tell you why, is the lack of discipline on a 5-year go-forward basis enable maintaining what this says we could do.
Right.
Okay, that locks the city manager saying is I can't add new bodies for 5 years,
Right.
right? I can shuffle my bodies, which we've all been for, shuffle the bodies to meet the need, but the number of bodies that are getting benefits really can't go up until you renegotiate your labor contracts, because your labor contracts are 2.5%, and you're not getting general revenue increases of 2.5%. And you're in the 10th year of a recovery, and some people think we're starting to slip already. I'm talking about the marketplace.
yeah, the market today was a little.
Well, and housing has
Housing is
Housing is
slipped,
down, autos
yeah.
are down.
Yeah.
There's indications that things are slipping. And that's why you want a 25% fund balance.
Yes.
We're at the peak of our best earnings in 10 years, and we can't balance our budget. That's
And
another way.
I don't have, but I would be open to looking at the form that would carry that 25%.
Yeah, maintaining it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
How we
that's been,
maintain it, whether it be cash or by our letters of credit or, you know, it's available funds.
it's just a matter of controlling your spending.
A letter of credit is not going to count
Right.
toward your balance. You can't substitute a
Right,
letter
you
of
can't
credit.
substitute debt.
That's debt.
It's got to be real.
Well, that
But it
answers
doesn't
that.
have, I'm sorry?
That answers that then.
Yeah, I mean,
That's much too easy.
it doesn't have to be cash. That's definitely true. It can be in,
Some
it's near,
asset.
it can be in near cash, or it can be you can invest.
Sure. But you can't have a letter of credit from Chase saying it will cover.
No, that's just in debt.
No.
We're already at our debt limits almost across the board.
We're at our own self-imposed debt.
Yes.
We're not at a legal debt.
Carrying cash is more expensive.
Well, we carry the cash.
Yeah. It's more expensive.
It's cash and near cash.
Right.
For new cash.
It's $9.6 million they need to get back to. We've already dipped. They've already dipped. They're 23.8 now, and probably not even on that.
Yeah, and the forecast I had us going down because I was accounting for some of these measures having to be, you'll have some payouts that you have to do in the current year to make them happen.
I spent quite a bit of time looking at that PDF that you sent us, where we're aligned with like-kind communities.
Mhm.
And it seems to me, and this is a generalization, I don't have it in front of me, so forgive me if I'm slightly off on this, but on the expense side, we're pretty much in the middle of the communities. On the income side, it looks like we're more towards the bottom, which indicates to me that we have an income problem as much as an expense.
Yeah, and part of that is, you know, your tax levy becomes a little tricky when you're looking at your comparables because of the NIU being not taxable in certain ways. So if you're comparing to,
But we were comparing to other
so we
universities.
do have some in there
Yes,
on
and they were
that.
like-kind,
Yeah.
reasonable comparisons. And I'm pretty well convinced that we need to really work on the income side,
Well,
which is,
the question
but
is,
you're not going to get the.
are you going to work on the income side by growing the community with real growth? Is that what you're saying?
I-
Or
that
are
would
you
be
just
first
about
choice.
increased taxes? Because that's been a debate for a long time.
That'd be the
If-
second
if you're-
choice, but-
If our taxes are the highest in the county, and the rates are the highest in the county, the argument about that is the problem is the wealth of the community. What is the wealth of the community, and what direction is the wealth of the community taking? And then how do you reverse that? Which is the troubling aspects of, we've talked a long time about the NIU student population issue and the growth or lack thereof.
But again, I presented information that DeKalb is one of the highest income college communities in Illinois. It depends on the data that you utilize, but I use reasonable data. And so yes, we do have some issues with, affordable housing. There's no question about that. But if you ask anybody, they're going to tell you the answer is, oh, I can't afford that. And as an economist, you look at how people behave, not what they tell you how they're going to behave. And you can see, just by looking at discretionary spending in the form of restaurants and bars in this community, that restaurant and bar spending, and therefore income from the food and liquor tax, has been steady and growing. And that's discretionary income. So, I don't want to oversell that, but it's not like the community is on the way totally down.
Well, I agree with that. But for example, not that we can go back and do anything about it, losing Mike Mooney dealership was just disastrous.
Yeah.
Huge
Just
sales
disaster.
tax.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, and there was no choice.
That would be our budget right there, the sales
Yeah.
tax. One car dealership.
Yeah, just that's why you want to continue to work on the business environment and those aspects, because you're in a very
But there was,
difficult, competitive
but
environment.
there was nothing about that move in particular, that was likely anything that DeKalb could have done anything
Well,
about.
I agree, Mike.
They tried very hard. They tried very hard to do a number of things.
Yeah, and
They
the
couldn't
dealership
successfully.
tried to. I mean, the pressure from the manufacturer in terms of what they would allow was,
It had a lot to do with the lack of a really decent location that they could sell to. That they didn't see a property that really could compete easily or well. Do you want to go through these alternatives or the ones we never finished?
whatever is the pleasure of the committee. I'd be glad to do whatever you would like.
I don't know what else.
Well, either we agree or don't agree with what the board has decided, is what they voted on,
Yeah.
didn't they, now?
Yeah,
Well,
so
they
you
didn't
have
vote.
what
They
their,
gave
their direction.
Their direction, which is probably pretty firm at this point.
I was going to ask if that were final.
but
I think there's a few in the, like, the assistant city manager hiring at the midpoint or lower, they debated on that one. And I think they were not in favor, but they were, that's one I think they were more a maybe. Yeah, their direction was maybe, and it would depend on the
Which
city
one?
manager hire. The assistant city manager. So.
You mean to
there's-
have one or not have one?
No, on what the pay would be.
Oh,
So they
I mean, the
were,
next logical discussion with me is if you're going to have an IT director, are you going to have a city manager, assistant city manager?
right, so I think since that one was a maybe, there might be some value into talking about that, grouping again, if you guys wanted to, or you could do the, the higher level recommendation where you don't support fund balance use. I mean, you can do either way. You can add more kind of individual recommendations if you want. You could do the more general recommendation or no recommendation at all this time.
Yeah.
And wait
Well, it's
until
the
the
survey that they keep referring to.
This one.
This
We
one.
did. The
It's
same one we did.
Same one we did.
They did the same one on their own.
Yeah,
And now she's put the two together with their final
Yeah.
meeting.
just for, going back, for factual information, the hotels in DeKalb are 40 to 60 rooms. Almost all. So,
But then that home two suites is about the same as they do.
40 to 60 is not really viable.
no, that's, you know, and if you're putting in a state hotel, the rooms are a little bit larger, so.
How many rooms? 90 rooms,
What is it?
home two suite.
Oh, 90 rooms, okay, great,
Is that the new one?
fantastic, yeah.
That'll be the new one.
Well, that's great,
Yeah,
that
so
will
that gets it
be,
right up there.
that will be the largest, it's close to what used to be the Best Western, the Red Roof, and that's the largest one in DeKalb, that's 80 rooms, I think, so. Yeah, all right, good, 90, that's fantastic, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's our pleasure here?
Well, what happens if you don't meet budget, if it doesn't balance?
Then you take it out of the fund balance.
Right, and
Okay,
so the
so
whole, so I sum up, usually when you put the budget together, there's that budget message, the transmittal letter,
Yes.
and it will discuss at a high level where we're not consistent with policies. And so it'll discuss how the property tax levy was this one direction instead of following financial policy that says you fund all of it through the levy. It'll go through the FAC's recommendation. Then I'll also say if it meets their fund balance policy. So if they don't meet the 25%, then if they want to do 24%, there'll be information in there saying that this is a deviation from policy, this is why they deviated. It'll explain it. And they can adopt the budget. So it's a balanced budget because the definition of a balanced budget in how local governance is, it's your revenues plus your other sources. So you can use fund balance to cover your expenditures. I know that typically when we talk about balanced budget here in DeKalb, we're more talking about revenues minus expenditures, and then we want revenues to be equal or greater than expenditures. So there's two different ways. So under the law, we can adopt it where your revenues are less than expenditures because you use fund balance.
Or you borrow.
I would,
Or you borrow. That's right.
I would adopt your comments from earlier if they get to the conversation in the 10th year of an economic expansion, in the best of times, that we did in the fund balance. That's irresponsible. That's, in my definition of really being irresponsible and not dealing with this, when you're on the verge of doing something that hasn't been done here for 5 years and creating an elimination of your structural deficit. According to these numbers, if we believe those four financial income revenue sources, which are relatively modest this time, I think they're tracked well, and if we can keep this in place, you will achieve a 5-year projected forecast that is balanced.
And it's everybody participated in that, you know, everybody felt the pain.
Yeah.
All departments, not
Right.
just,
1.7
well, you
million.
know, we're not picking on just the police and fire because that's where the money is. Every department was involved.
Then,
So I'm just looking at what the council did here. And I just want to put a different spin on it, because I think we, the collective we, sometimes lose track of the context of some of the numbers. Okay? One of the revenue sources that they rejected is one that pretty much everybody in the community would pay in one form or another. Okay? And it works out to $2 per resident per year. Rejected.
which one's that?
The utility one?
The electric tax generates $87.5. That's $2 per person per year. The gas, or
Let's
the
make it $4.
gas utility tax, $45,326. That's $1 per person per year. Okay. So if you take that and you go over 12 months, That's 8 cents per month, okay? That $45,000 is a half a position. That's revenue that we're asking people to pay 8 cents a month. I think that, you know, those decisions, those are, I would consider those to be relatively universal taxes, okay? They're not gonna hit like the property tax does. But to reject those is,
I agree.
you know, you just have to maintain perspective. I mean, I remember when we were talking about, there was a project many years ago, and two city council members who are long gone from the city council sat me down. We went to a restaurant and we talked about whether the city should take this on. And the city's risk was going to be $400,000 over the entire life of the project. And I won't tell you what the project was, but it was something where I said, well, okay, let's say you pay it off over 2 years or something. Would your constituents be willing to pay $20 to have access to that project? They said, well, of course. I said, then what's the problem? You have to look at it from the perspective of what you're getting for that. So anyway, I'm just not confident that there has been a full vetting of the opportunities to do something in the long term with respect to expenditures and revenues that would make the situation better without just taxing the heck out of people.
What was the city council's position on the hotel motel eating out?
Oh, no. Hotel motel,
Yeah.
they said yes.
Okay.
0.5%.
But
Yeah,
the
half of-
restaurant
Right.
and eating places tax?
They didn't really consider that separately. They considered a rise in the home rule sales tax, which would also
Okay.
apply. And they rejected, that was $3 million, and that was
They
rejected.
turned both down, the food and beverage.
Packaged liquor,
Oh, okay.
packaged liquor was 480.
Yeah, they turned it down.
It's not a necessity.
Not in favor based on survey results.
So that's one that was kind of to your point, Chair Bowles, is in Champaign, I saw this one too, where they went through the recession and we had significant declines in revenues except for food and beverage. It actually increased because of the college students, my anecdotal sense.
That's just
College students spend money on food even if there's a recession.
Even if they borrow.
Right, or even if it's their parents.
That's not the criminal.
Yeah.
That's right.
Look, I mean, here's one of the,
This is what I was trying to remember right here. This is
Yeah.
it.
oh,
That's it.
The restaurant, bar, and packaged liquor tax increase.
would generate $480,000.
And that's not something you have to exist.
The note is comment, food and bars are not doing all that great, not yet anyway. Well, that's counter to the evidence from the tax receipts. That's been actually pretty steady for the last 2 or 3 years. There is an unhealthy aversion to the revenue side of the budget.
I don't understand.
And I,
I don't understand.
I am the first one to say we need to be prudent, and we need, and I am, believe it or not, I'm very fiscally conservative. But sometimes you have to use the data. And, if our restaurant tax, okay, was 1% greater, 1 percentage point greater than Sycamore. Okay. Here's how I put it the last time this came up. Okay. On a $100 meal, okay, that's $1. $1. And you're going to drive to Sycamore to avoid that $1, you're going to spend more in gas. You're going to spend more in gas. It's far more important to have the kind of places that people want to visit. It's going to be more dependent on the types of restaurants, the types of bars that you have. than it is on the tax rate. And by the way, I was just in a city, not in this state, it was 13% on restaurants and bars. So, anyway,
Well, the point I was trying to make is this might be something that if we return to this issue with data, and can indeed demonstrate that there hasn't been some terrible reductions, that would solve a lot of our current problem. At least I would be willing to go along with that idea. And it's not as if that does not, restaurant, bar, and packaged liquor tax does not represent food, water, shelter, enough heat to keep you alive.
that depends on who you ask. I mean, this created such an uproar among the students that there would possibly be an extra tax on in the bars that, you know.
I knew student, they've got their value system, that's true, but.
They learned that in the business school, I think.
No, they don't, no.
So you could pull up the year-to-date report at the last agenda, I don't know if I have it.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure the food and beverage has jumped a
It has been.
It's been in response very much to what's going on in DeKalb at the Egyptian, at the Convocation Center.
Sure.
And this town fills up when you have something good at those.
Yes, it does.
And
And the
the restaurants
people,
run.
and the people eat
They
downtown.
eat downtown, we're on a pretty good run of things going on
Yeah.
at the Egyptian and all, so I would predict.
The
More rather
Egyptian
than
is
less.
gaining momentum.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
More rather than less on the food and bar, and
So
they're
that,
gonna complain.
yeah, the 480.
Well, look, there are some people, if you handed them a gold brick, they complain because you're gonna hurt their back if they pick it up. Come on. This is something we could return to. This is not a necessity of life. And that chunk of change would help this problem tremendously.
What was that? How much of an increase?
0.5%.
0.5%?
0.5%, 50 cents on
Gets
a
us
$100
$480.
tab.
Is that what I?
That's 480,000 by the estimate. Now, estimates
Based
are-
on last year's?
Yeah, on receipts or
Yeah,
something.
so it's probably not gonna be much less. Good chance it'd be more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could go down in that, it goes up a half, and, you know, that's one of the potential negative effects, is someone drives to Sycamore instead, or they choose to stay home.
You know what, I would
Make
think
dinner
that
themselves.
90% of the people don't even recognize what the tax is. And remember, that's applying to fast food. I mean,
And when you think this would be 50 cents on $100, come on now.
on a $10, 5 cents.
A nickel on a $10 tab. Goodness.
You change your dining habits for 5 cents on a $10.
No, I would not.
Okay. All right, so let's get back. What do we want to do?
We can go after that and say, hey,
Tom?
look at this data.
Wait. What do you want to do?
Well, you kind of picked out, or collectively, we have picked out 3 or 4 of the items that were on
Yes.
the agenda that we never completed, which are those alternate items. So we don't have a recommendation, I don't think,
No, we didn't go.
that we made on any of those.
Right.
We did not.
We could finish those. I mean, that's what I was thinking of earlier.
What, with a straw poll? Is that what you're?
Yeah, just like we did before.
Well, there's 4 of us here.
Yeah, let's go ahead and,
Which question?
We're legal,
which
yeah,
question
we're going.
was-
yeah.
well, wait a minute, do
Well,
we have our results?
The expenses need to be balanced.
Where are our
with all
results?
the
Were they
different
in the last
departments,
meeting packet?
not one or
The
two.
survey
Right.
results are the ones
Equal care
you're.
needs to be spent on the income side of the expense.
Right.
Oh, I guess it would be,
I hear you.
yeah,
Oh,
well,
no, that
You
was.
can't just
I
have
still
a
have
one
mine.
creature.
I guess.
it would be in the last.
You probably have it too.
So we're on question number what?
Now tell me what it is, because I have got my notes from when they weren't
We
numbered
start-
consecutively.
You start on question number 32 is where you stop.
Which
I was
is.
I was afraid you'd say
32, okay, so, you know,
What is question 32? I've got a different system here.
municipal band.
Okay.
Okay, so reduce or eliminate municipal band funding. Just straw poll. How many in favor?
Wait a minute, I'm still looking, trying to find it. I'm not on-
Question 32 it is. We were split 2-2-2 it.
Yes, you were.
Got
You were
it. Okay,
222, and then council actually recommended $10,000 reduction on this.
What's the feeling tonight? I mean,
I was a no before, I know that. And on my comment, I said could reduce by 10,000. That was my
I
comment.
think if, I would go for, agree with her 10,000
that's fine,
Okay, as long as they'll cut it some, that's all right.
all right,
to start.
okay.
Yes, and then wean them off, because I believe that comment was in there about with the ultimate goal of them finding a way to sustain themselves.
Right.
Yes, okay.
Eliminate Metro West Metropolitan Managers funding, $20,350.
Now, what was their take on that? I don't have that in front of me.
They eliminated it, I think.
He did nothing.
No, they got rid of Metro West.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, they eliminated it.
Right,
So I would
Okay.
strongly vote no on that because it's a matter of cooperation with the area governments and it's Metro West and
Well-
metropolitan mayors have had some good lobbying results in Springfield. And it's a small investment to stay up to date with our friends in the Fox Valley. You know, we may be the only, are we the only community in DeKalb County that participates?
Doesn't the county participate?
I don't think they're.
No, no,
If not for them?
no, it's municipality.
support for DeKalb is secondary for this organization.
We're not even listed on their website.
So, hey, yeah, if the city were to eliminate membership in Metro West and Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, the city would realize the cost savings, yada, yada, between membership fees and travel. But when I initially read through the explanation that was given, I thought, let her go.
So we would be doing more with the Illinois Municipal League and.
IML is still, you'd still be
We
in
still have
IML.
Alma. I know.
Right.
And there's still some funding for training and sessions that the mayor will probably attend through this group. It's just we wouldn't be at every,
Couldn't vote.
we wouldn't be at every session, we wouldn't be a voting member, and you'd pay the non-member rate for the ones that.
And if they hadn't even put us on their website now,
Well, yeah, but all right,
I'm smack in the
Here's
face.
here's a case where, okay, metropolitan mayors is one thing, okay? But Metro West, they aren't the same thing.
No, they're.
No, it was presented that way.
Right,
Yeah.
and Metro West, okay, I'm sorry, I'm just in this kind of mood. It's nice of the city council to keep the funding for their organizations, but not for the professionals. In Metro West, there's a lot of interaction between the professionals. And I know that there are people in the city who don't think what's happening in St. Charles or Geneva or Elgin matters to us, but it does. It does, and we need to stay up with that. And we need to have a focused presence in Springfield, and that's the only one of these types of organizations that is available to us. IML is a city organization for the municipality itself. It is not for, it's not for the non-elected officials. And this isn't throwaway money. This is not, a professional association. This is an organization of communities that, you know, our other choice is to go to Rockford. Rockford is not going to give us the time of day. The thing that's nice about Metro West is you're not talking about large cities for the most part. We're not dwarfed by the members of Metro West. And a lot of those are people that come right up to our borders. I mean, you know, the Elburns, the Maple Parks of the world. So anyway, I've said my piece. But it seems like there's general support for what the council did, so that's fine. Eliminate the social service agreements or reduce them. They ended up not doing that, is that correct? Any objection to that? Reduce or eliminate the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce support.
What would be wrong with changing to the fee-based model? Changing to this fee-based model would allow the city to have special events throughout the city without maintaining the cost of employee compensation and benefits. Oh, but no, excuse me,
That's what
excuse
we
me,
did.
excuse me.
Well,
They did not reduce it.
Yeah, they did not.
They were not in favor.
They did not.
No, this is one they wanted to keep for 1 year
I
and then
think-
go out for proposals for the following year. To determine-
Proposals for what?
To see who would run the special events that they want seen throughout the city.
So they don't see any value outside of the,
Special events.
Chamber of Commerce is an
That's
important
what-
element.
yeah.
No, but that's
You're talking about growth and trying to drive
Yeah.
growth.
But this 45,000 is for the special events. We
Is that
haven't-
all it is?
It supports the person that they hire to do the events.
Right.
And we have specific events called out in the agreement that they have to do.
But it's also our
for this
chamber
funding.
support, right?
It's, yeah, I mean, it's also the city's support.
There's not another line item for chamber support, is there?
No,
It's
no,
part of
no,
this,
it
that's-
is, but there is a
That's it.
significant portion of it that goes to that. It essentially pays for the person they do for the special events right
Well, they didn't,
Well, they.
I don't think we reduced it in years. I think it might have been 50, it went to
It was.
25.
It was, and the chamber came and said that it could be reduced. Reduce, eliminate the DCEDC support.
And their position, the council's position, final position was,
now.
That's 34?
It's 36.
That's 36.
Okay.
$45,000.
Okay. Any objection to that? Reduce or eliminate the DeKalb County Convention and Visitors Bureau support.
And that one they reduced, right?
$10,000.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Reduce, eliminate local athletic sponsorships.
They kept that.
And we said no as well.
Okay. Transition the airport to a fixed-base operator model.
This was, they're going to keep it the way it is now, but we're going to do research to look at the governance and regional airport.
Okay, same old, same old.
That's a big step, I think.
Yeah, it is.
In the right direction.
Yeah. We, you
I
know,
don't know. I wasn't sold on it, but we're not, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got one full-time person and maybe two. Maybe, is there a clerical type person? There's a manager?
No, Tom Cleveland's the manager, and then we have the mine service workers.
Okay, so there's really one administrative person involved in this, which is 125 or whatever it is.
reduced the non-bargaining unit
And
salary
they
increase.
cut
we
that
already-
in half,
Yeah.
right, to
Okay.
1.25%.
Anybody
Agree
issue?
with that?
Utilize the SUV fast response fire vehicle.
Somebody said no
This is an increase to the budget?
Right.
there. Yeah, they said no.
Well, there were no yes votes from us. There was a, all right, I think we just go by our own.
And the next one's about that mini pumper.
Made a lot of changes on that too.
Yeah, and they said no, right? At this time, that's probably, okay.
Now we're into the revenues, the next
Yeah.
items.
Yeah. Home rule sales tax increase.
Not in favor. They said, we were 3, 1, 2?
Mhm.
3
I,
yes,
you
1
know, I
no,
think
2
if
no.
it was to fund, you know, $3 million would fund pretty much the capital program
Yeah.
that we're talking about. So, you know, if we talked about this in terms of streets and fleet, and tied it to streets and fleet, maybe that's a discussion to be had.
I think that's a valuable
That would be
discussion.
worth it.
Yeah, all right. I
Yes.
think, why don't we?
Certainly a
Yes.
valuable
I would
discussion.
explore that, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think explore it in that context and, you know, because I don't think, you know, there was tax increase to capital only, money needed for streets and fleet. So this is being viewed as
So-
not technically, but it's being viewed as a way to fund a capital program.
Yeah, so
Sure.
you're no to operating, but explore for streets and fleet. when we
Yeah.
discuss it.
Correct.
Yeah, and 1/4%,
This is 1%,
1%?
right?
Okay.
This is
So
That's a lot.
$1 on $100, $10 on.
Yeah, but it,
1,000.
you know, but it all adds up, you know,
Yeah,
if we,
yeah, yeah.
if we do the restaurant bar and things. But,
Sure.
Well, this is one could dramatically change. Things
Yeah.
got better
Yeah,
or worse.
yeah.
Well,
This is-
that's,
It instantly reacts to the. economy.
Instantly, yes. Yes.
We talked about restaurant, bar, and packaged liquor tax increase, and I think we want to explore that with the
Yes.
council. Is that
Yes.
fair? Because we were 4-2 on that. Hotel motel tax increase, I think we already discussed. That was okay.
You're in favor?
Okay,
Yeah.
with the half.
The electric utility tax increase,
I don't remember how much.
what does this say?
I can't find it.
I only got the
It's
original one,
question
we were talking
46,
about
or,
87,500.
Yeah, but what was the amount of the increase?
5% increase in the electric utility
Yeah, it was-
tax would equate to 87,500.
How much?
5%.
5%.
A 5% increase?
no.
That's what's here.
I think it's,
Is it 5% off of a number, or is it 5%?
It can't- I can't.
That doesn't sound right.
no, that doesn't. That's got to be,
This was the one with the original proposal had a scale that changed with the kilowatt hours of usage.
Yeah, it's all through that.
I would want to explore
I'm sorry,
this
it's a
some more.
1% increase. is what you said.
First of all, I don't understand.
1%?
In FY 2017,
Yeah, it
1.75
would increase it
million
up to 5%, so it was.
oh, increase of 2.
to
So,
5%.
That's 1%?
From,
Up to 5%.
Oh, I gotta go back to the page.
Here's the current breakdown.
This is one.
It's a
That's
wacky
proposing.
woo by kilowatt hour, very detailed.
see,
Yeah.
The odds are that your increase would come in with less revenue than the 87.5. The utility taxes, they tend to be more elastic when, you know, I don't know if this one's large enough, but people are using less energy.
this takes
Or they're trying to.
new users, I think, to make a dramatic difference.
Yeah, and so, you know, you might get 87.5, but.
This one has fewer prospects than some of the others.
But this is, again, I go back, this is $2 per person per year.
Okay, good point.
Per meter, so it's not per person.
No, I'm saying, if you divide by the 43,000 people
Oh,
that are, you know,
yeah, so it
roughly
is per person.
per person, you know,
So it'd be more per meter.
correct.
In most
It would be
cases.
more per meter, correct.
Might be.
So, what do you think? Worth,
Their comment was Sycamore doesn't have any, and they probably don't have gas tanks either, and we do.
Right,
but who,
but that's not typical.
I mean.
That's
who the-
weird,
Who the
as a matter of
heck
fact.
cares? I
Yeah.
mean, that's something that, I'm sorry, you know, maybe it does make a difference, but the bottom line is, people don't shop for a house based on something that
The
is,
utility taxes.
not likely, not
No.
likely.
Not people, only
They're
major
$2 bucks per
businesses,
bill.
we're gonna make a
Right.
special deal.
Like if you're an aluminum
Well,
smelter,
in this,
you're gonna do it. you know.
that's true,
Yeah.
but that's what's existing.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and, you know, it'd be interesting, I'll have to ask some of my friends in Sycamore to bring their bills in, so
Well-
we can see what kind of taxes they're paying on the bills. I'm not saying that they have the local tax.
I'm assuming it's zero, right?
Well,
Or
no,
municipal tax.
because there's a state utility
Oh, yeah, no, I'm talking about
tax.
municipal.
Yeah, no, I understand that, I would like to see what you know, what it
But
looks like.
I can see somebody arguing that you must have electricity and gas to live, to exist. And so,
But
It's progressive.
But
yes.
the
yes.
tax base on this is not your total bill. It's, I'm sorry?
It's kilowatt hours.
It's graduated by kilowatt hour
Kilowatt
usage.
hours.
Yeah,
It's
and
usage.
here's the graduation.
But what I'm saying is that if you look at your electric bill, a relatively small portion of it is kilowatt hours.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
You know, there's other, yeah.
Yes.
And so it's.
This will affect the hotels, things like that, more than individuals.
Well, it could, yeah.
And they have commercial rates, different rate anyway.
Right.
I don't
So
know.
what do we want to do? Just at least put it on the burner, or do we just want to accept the council's decision? I mean,
Well,
I have no skin in the game.
we got a lot more bang for the buck out of some of these other ones that we can go
Yeah.
after.
All right.
Well, it depends what happens to the other ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the
Exactly.
gas utility is the same story.
Yep, same thing.
Yeah. I could live with
So-
that.
And with the
Self-storage.
self-storage, yay!
Yeah, okay,
Okay,
that's,
why are we afraid to increase the video gaming terminal renewal fees?
I don't know.
well,
Do you
Well,
recall what their
did
explanation was?
anyone recuse themselves on that vote?
Nope, it's-
No, I'm talking about in the city council,
Yeah, city council board.
in the actual vote.
Answered 6.
On video gaming,
So somebody.
No.
recused
Yeah, they were always
themselves.
8. They're all 8 except that one.
no, I would have written it down. I don't have a recusal for that one.
They only voted 6 according to your,
Favor wasn't there, and Fanukin left public.
Okay.
Oh, that's right.
He got 6.
Okay.
But now, why would they not?
why are they not for it? I don't know. I don't know. If you were going to get some money, that would be.
That's not a necessity of life.
Or raise the electric, you get it that way.
Hold on. So,
Oh,
All those
no,
machines.
no, no.
one, Alderman Verbic wanted to change it to $1,000 annual fee. Fagan said there's not-for-profits doing this, and they're able to use that funding for good. So that if you increase the terminal fees, then you're taking away from what they're using that way. Jacobson said percentage of revenue fees and liquor licenses plus the terminals is about 30-40% tax coming from these fees, and it goes against business friendly.
If we get all of that, we don't have to share it with the state.
Oh, no.
No, the terminal fee, we collect,
Yeah.
but the gaming fee, you know,
Taxes
the
are shared.
losses, the state gets.
But I mean,
the
utility
share.
fee, we could, if we,
Right.
Yes,
Right.
going back to that.
Right,
we don't-
back to those utility fees.
Yeah, we
yes.
don't have.
but there is an overlay,
There is
there is a
state-
state fee, or state tax.
So I didn't get FACs on the video gaming.
I don't see why they couldn't let that ease up a little bit, increase it a
I'm
little
in
bit.
favor of increase.
Yeah, okay, I'm
All right,
for
so we're in
increasing,
favor.
at least a little bit, come on.
Yeah, we had 411.
Ah,
And then the last one, they're researching the implementation.
Yeah,
The
because they
amusement
can't get
tax,
it.
right.
They can't get it at the football game.
Right, right.
We've been working on that for
Oh, why not?
the better part of 25 years.
Why can't they get it out for game tickets?
I don't understand why. No, there shouldn't be. Other places do it in Illinois,
Yeah.
so, yeah. It depends, you need somebody good to structure the ordinance, though. So, anyway.
So we've got things lined up now that we want to return to take another look, to talk about on the night of the 5th.
Yep, so similar to the one I gave council that you guys got this time, where I'll add these to that
Thank
list
you.
of things
Thank you.
for council, for that November 5th, your joint meeting. Did you see that one?
November 5th?
Yeah, it's a Monday night.
5 o'clock.
5
Yeah.
Now,
o'clock.
there's
It's Sunday
not a
hall.
regular meeting that night, is that correct?
Correct.
It's just us.
It's just this meeting.
It's just
Just a
this
joint
meeting.
meeting on budget.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and levy, I suppose.
Now, wait a minute, recreational marijuana is not yet approved in Illinois, so I don't think it's truly a joint meeting.
Oh.
You know, I have to say, for what it's worth,
We
it's
did
nothing. The state of
Medical
Illinois
purposes
needs
only.
to do something to gather revenue in a big way.
That can be.
That would do it.
I don't know why that couldn't be done.
That's like all that, during prohibition, all that alcohol that was for medicinal purposes
That's right.
only that was
That's right.
sold down at the drugstore.
Well, I was rubbing it on my neck.
Yeah.
Okay, so the
Were you?
next question,
Did you
you
try?
don't want to go into streets and
Did it
fleet,
work?
or?
No,
Well, I don't know, I think we want to talk to them about streets and fleet.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that we have a recommendation at this particular point in time, except that we may be willing to recommend the sales tax to pay for it. I mean, my opinion is we've been beating a dead horse. I mean, we know where we stand, I think, with respect to the fact that we want to have some capital funding, because we keep kicking the can down the road, and the situation does not get any better. We're not spending enough money to even maintain the streets, let alone improve them.
They're deteriorating as we speak.
Oh, let alone
actually.
fleet. Fleet is an issue too.
Well, some of us have been reluctant to do it because we've never addressed our long-term structural deficit. I'm one of those. If we don't address that, there is reluctance on my part that money's going to be truly segregated for capital in the long term. Because we have dipped in, we've beat up the water fund, we've transferred more costs in the water fund this year, on top of the other transfers we've made the last 3 or 4 years against that water fund to help us
Well,
build up the general fund.
then perhaps we can see the progress if we do make what we consider progress on some of those other things we want to return to for reconsideration. And if we make enough headway there, we will have a legitimate reason. We've got streets and fleet then in our sights, because we'll have enough money to work with to do something, rather than wring our hands.
But only if other things are in order.
Right, yeah, exactly, exactly.
We have not dealt with the TIF budget or the water budget at all. Is the TIF budget in our packet?
No, it's still pending discussions. So I don't have one yet.
But you got to pass one, and we're not going to look at it?
No, you'll have that for November 5th. So we'll do.
Oh, we'll see it.
Your typical budget packet. You'll have
Okay, the
that
TIF
November 5th.
spending and the capital outlay, and is the road number still in there? For those of us who watch it carefully.
For streets and fleet, the funding?
No, in TIF, is there $1 million allocated for
Nope.
roads?
No.
How
It's,
much?
remember, it went down to 250,000.
Oh,
And we recommended something higher,
Right.
though we debated at length. I would hope we could recommend a higher number.
Yeah, so it's 250 is what was
Because
planned.
that really limits, I mean, the total street number then is what, 1 million?
Yeah.
It's-
They'll do one block.
We were doing 1 million plus
Maybe.
whatever you had coming out.
Right, and we used some one-time money this year for motor fuel, because we had fund balance from savings on other projects and stuff.
We haven't looked at motor fuel either.
No, you'll get all of that.
See, there's a lot of stuff we haven't looked at. So far, we've just done the budget balancing list. We haven't looked at the rest of the budgets.
Hold on, I wrote it down.
There's quite a few.
We have 250 in TIF for 19, 720 in local motor fuel.
Is that for general, or is that for a specific project?
Well, we'll have the street plan, I just don't have it in front of me to tell
Okay.
you which ones those are.
But it's not just to supplement the state or federal funds. It's truly for repairs.
It's for repairs, but some of it will be partnered. You know, we use some of it to say if the state will do this much and we can piggyback.
Yeah.
So
Right.
some of it's that.
I know we used to segregate most of it for major projects, and they did not really get into the street repair program at all.
Yeah, so
They were for
Director
Major
Holman,
bridges and projects that the federal
he's,
government.
yeah, so he's trying to
It's like
maximize where
80-20
we,
or whatever.
yeah, where we can get the money
Yeah.
to do those. But then he started that strategy, and you really saw it this year during construction season, where he did just about everything he could possibly do, I think, in the Elwood District. And then so he'll come up with another area where they try to get everything done.
Oh, yes, I
To-
remember
to
that.
kind of solve it.
Yeah.
in one
Bless you.
time.
Yes, yeah, I mean, that's fine.
So it'll be, it's in that same vein.
It's just.
I just don't know it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
With my tongue firmly planted in my cheek, be careful what you wish for if you live down in the Fairview Drive area.
Oh,
You know what
that
road
construction?
construction's like.
They're doing a bunch of construction down on Fairview.
Fairview was closed for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
What do they do?
They're doing something with respect to drainage down there. And,
Oh, is this the water system?
And they're
Yeah, and
re,
then it'll fix the street when they come back.
and now, and they're replacing the street now from.
This is water main projects. This is your water
Pretty sure
budget
it was a water
in
main.
action.
Yeah.
No?
Was it drainage?
No, I don't think it's water. I think it's sewer. Maybe there is some water too. I mean, those mains are too big for water.
Well, then it must be sewer. It's not, is it sanitary? Which is the sanitary district, not ours. But if it's water, it's ours.
Well, there was, I think there was a joint project because there were some things that had to be done on Fairview Drive. And so since they were going to be doing this other stuff, that they moved that into the,
That makes sense.
and then the,
While you're under the hood. Yeah.
well, you don't want to tear it up.
Right,
again.
exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying, yes.
But there's massive drainage improvements that have been made on the north side of Fairview between First Street and England. At least that's what it appears to be. Primarily west of the river.
Well, it used to flood.
Yeah, it's not quite as bad with the purchases of the homes, and drainage has been improved down there.
I'm sure we have it on our website. so we can-
All right, where are we at?
It's up to you guys if you want to make any more recommendations, or if this is where you're
Well,
comfortable leaving it
the
for.
only solid addition I would make is, I would hope as an FAC, we can have a firm recommendation to not use fund balance, which we've made
Yeah.
a recommendation in the last 3 years in a row.
Do I have a motion? I think we just make.
Motion,
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
aye. Abide by your own policies.
Right.
Well, that's a firm one, and they
Okay.
live with it pretty well. Trying to.
Correct.
Utility work, drainage improvements, and road reconstruction.
Where is this again?
It was
No,
Fairview
Fairview.
Drive.
Between First and Innington.
So down that cemetery.
No,
No,
it's
further.
west of there.
West.
Further
It's
west
the
there.
golf course on the
Yeah.
north. And
Yeah.
the Super 8 and there's one townhome development there.
Because I think I'm on the cemetery board, I think they did approach us, we've got some big drains going through the cemetery.
Oh.
Yeah, you're talking about sewers. Water.
Water drains, yeah.
Yeah, not sanitary,
I think it's storm.
but. Storm.
Stormwater.
That's all ours.
Yeah, the stormwater.
We own that. That's the only reason I'm clarifying.
Yeah, that
Those are our projects.
I meant storm, yes.
Those are our projects, city projects.
Mhm.
Are we ready?
We're ready.
I'm ready.
We're done?
Unless you got something.
No, I don't have anything. Next meeting's November 5th. Okay.
Yay!
Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
non-debatable. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?